I was riding back home from work the other day, got to the railway station in London, and there was a sort of ping noise from the bike. I thought maybe I'd run over something. I didn't think too much of it at the time because I was sort of rushing to get a train. Got on the train, got to my hometown, cycled through the centre of town, pushed it through the bike through a shopping centre, and I could hear while I did that this sort of funny ting, ting, ting every rotation of the wheel. So checked it wasn't the front wheel, checked the back wheel, and I noticed this. This spoke had broken here, and it was just swinging around, and every time the wheel rotated it would go ping against the derailleur, I think. So not much I could do with it at the time. I just sort of tucked it in here somehow just to keep it out of the way so it didn't go ping. But I need to now replace that spoke. Now these are 20-inch wheels, but note that the length of the spoke varies. In this case we've got a motor on the back, which means that the spoke is going to be shorter, and also the length changes depending on how your wheel, how these spokes are intermeshed. Here it's just crossing one other spoke, but on some bikes it might be crossing more than that, and so it might actually be longer, so you need to measure. It appears to be about 130 mil from about there to the end of here. So I've ordered some. They're only it's like less than £10 for a whole set of them. I think that's 14 gauge, so you need to look for that when ordering them. So that's the diameter. So as well as being 130 mil long, it's 2 mil in diameter. So anyway, I'll tell you in a minute whether I ordered the right thing or not. Right, here it is. It seems a bit short. Oh, they're in diagonally, that's why. It's 36 of them. I actually needed one, but it gives me a few spares. Now it also, so there's the actual spokes. So does that look about right? I reckon that does actually. Okay, it also comes with these sort of nipples or end pieces, whatever you call them. So this is the bit that goes within the wheel here, and that the spoke screws into. So if I pull one out, we can see how this works. So that screws in like that. Now obviously what you need to do is thread it through this hole here, or thread this end through there, up there, and then that goes into the wheel through the hole, and then this screws together. Now what I want to try and do is avoid taking the entire wheel unit off and then taking the tyre off, just so I can get this piece back in there, and hopefully the nipple on the broken one should be the same size, and therefore I can reuse that. But what I've got to do is make sure I don't accidentally lose it. So when I undo this, unscrew this, it'd be so easy for that to disappear inside the wheel, and then I've got to take the whole thing apart. Now what I will do is have that spoke at the top of the wheel, so that hopefully, because if I have it at the bottom, as soon as I unscrew the spoke, that nipple's just going to fall in. So at least it gives me half a chance that it'll stay in place. Obviously here I can screw this up with my fingers, but to screw this in properly and tighten it, I'm going to need a little spanner or wrench that goes on there, this little sort of square end piece. Now that's a standard tool that you can get from a bike shop or get online for tightening spokes, and they often support multiple different sizes. But you may find that you get one with, if you've got a bike multi-tool, it will often come with one. So here I have a very small multi-tool. This one's from Top Peak, but there are other models available, and that appears to be spoke tensioning things. Right, so if we take this apart, So one of these should fit this. So it's square, so I'm reckoning it's that one. Yep, that's the one. And it says 14 gauge on there, which matches that. But it doesn't fit there. So let's try the mountain bike. Yeah, that fits perfectly on the mountain bike. So this tool does have some other options. So there's a sort of square spanner section. Yeah, that seems to fit. I spun it back round to the bottom. I'm just going to put a tiny amount of penetrating oil on there. Put a set of pliers on this end. Because I've got the end, it's going to make it easier. Put that on there. Appears to be unscrewing now. Yeah, that's unscrewing. Now it's at the point where it's loose enough I can get my fingers around it and rotate it out, I think by hand. Yeah. And then we can compare the thread, see if it is actually the right size. If it's not, I'm going to screw it back in. Okay, let's compare it to this one. I'm not convinced. No, I think that's a different size. That is a different size. So now we can see it is thicker, and now that one's off, I can measure it properly. So I clearly need to order something different, but let's just check the lengths. I think the length, yeah, the length is right. So it is 130 mil long, but this is a thicker spoke on the bike. So I'll measure that, then we'll put it back on so we don't lose it. So here's the new one. That is exactly 2 mil diameter. Just looking at the vernier scale on it, it is exactly 2. Let's look at the old one. Maybe 2.25. So that is not a 14 gauge. So I need to find 130 mil, whatever gauge this is, 13 or something. I'll look it up in a second. Because I mean, this would probably fit in here. I could probably take the wheel off and do that, but you know, that is a weaker spoke than this one. Interestingly, the mountain bikes on these, so you'd expect the mountain bike to get some heavier action than this city bike. Of course, the mountain bike's got full suspension, so some of the shock is taken out. Whereas there's no suspension, so it's your weight is pounding down on that the wheel every time. Okay, let's put this back on before we lose that nipple. And by the way, if you're wondering what that sort of weird square wrench was here, it's actually part of the bicycle chain link remover that comes on the tool. It just happens to be about the right size for those spokes. So I ordered a couple of things. I needed some new spokes, some 2.25mm thick spokes, and I needed a proper spoke key that fitted. I know I managed to get that multi-tool to work. So spokes have come. I couldn't find any black ones, so I've got some silver ones. It's not going to quite match, but because I need the bike during the week, I can't really afford to wait because every day I'm not using the bike is going to cost me £20 in extra travel costs. So just buying some extra spokes, and I can change them later, is neither here nor there. So that's a proper spoke here as well that should fit it. The 3.5mm should be the right one. This is from BBB, so there's lots of these things for only a few pounds on Amazon, but I wanted to buy a proper brand because people have complained some of the cheapo ones, the non-branded ones, just don't fit properly, or the metal isn't high quality. This is clearly a high quality piece of kit. Right, basically the same as before. So let's see if these fit. Yeah, that's clearly the correct fit, correct size. So let's see how that works. So what I'll do first is pull this off again. I'm going to be very careful not to knock this into the rim. So if I push this through there, it's a bit tricky because the cassette, the other side of the motor hub and the disc brake tend to interfere with this, but by bending it slightly and turning the wheel a little bit, we can get it to the point where it comes through. So needs a bit of effort. There we go. Now this is where I'm going to be very careful. I have to be very careful because it's going to be really difficult to get this into there without losing this into the rim. So I'm probably going to have to bend it very slightly as I do this. See, I've bent it this way to give me some play, and then there we go. You can hear the difference. That's tight, that's not. Different tune. That seems to have done the trick. Now if I was going to be particularly fussy about it, you'd want the wheel off and true it properly, but I think that's probably good enough. I mean, it's just a commuter bike. The wheel, when it spins, it doesn't seem out of true, so that looks good enough to me. And it only cost a few pounds to do, and I managed to do it without taking the wheel out. So that looks like a success, and I've got a load of spare spokes now for if another one breaks. Okay, hopefully that will help someone. Cheers.